Aaron, thanks so much for spending some time with me today. Very passionate about the topics that we're going to talk about. But what I really want to focus on, you and I are both sales leaders, and there's a lot of talk in today's day and age, especially just in light of the massive shifts in the way we work over the last couple of years with culture and building a winning sales culture for your team. Would love to know your thoughts on how do you do that? How do you put the pieces in place for a winning sales team?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I think it's something that every sales leader is looking to solve, right, within their teams. I think for me, it's just an angle of positivity, and then it comes down to attitude. I can work with somebody with a great attitude, somebody that maybe doesn't have the skills of someone else on the team. To me, it's that fight, it's that attitude, it's a winning attitude. To me, sales often equates to sports, right? And so I look at it this way. Why is it, Carson, interesting question, that in college football, an unranked team can beat a number one team on any given Saturday? Why is that the case? All right, it comes down to attitude. It comes down to what I call momentum. Right. So I have a formula for momentum. You may disagree with this, but it's something I would love to share with people. Okay. And momentum starts with success. First part of momentum, you can't have momentum without success. So success is you have the right attitude, you go out and do all the right things, you follow the process of sales, and you get a couple of wins. And you start like, wow, I can do this. And you start having success. What does that success breed over time as it's repeated? It breeds confidence. So now, because you're having successes, you become more confident. Okay, so now we have success plus confidence, right? Little equation here. Okay, then the third part of this equation is now we add belief. So now it's no longer just a confidence. It's you're going to win the deal. Like nothing will stop you. Like, when you go into every deal, I've got this deal, this will close. So when I say, are we forecasting? Yeah, we're absolutely forecasting that. Like I've got this one, this one, this one, this one. Like I can't lose. Like there is a belief inside of you that nothing will derail the deal. Like you're going to win it. So you have belief, which equals momentum. So when you have successes, that leads to confidence, that leads to a belief system that you are not going to lose on any given deal. At the end of the day, you create this momentum, and momentum is scary. So go back to my college football analogy for a second. Right. So we look at last year. Texas A&M upsetting Alabama. What happens? Well, after the first quarter, A&M starts to have some success. Okay, and they're starting to think, man, today's could be our day. Right. By the second quarter, they're starting to get some confidence. They're like, all right, not only are we playing great defense, we're putting points on the board on this team. Okay, by the third quarter, it's like we're ahead or we're in this game. Now they're starting to believe. That's why the third quarter of any college football game is the turning point, because if the top team is behind, the team starts to believe like we're going to win this game. Like we can beat this team. Right. And by the fourth quarter, it happens. Like that belief translates into momentum. And in the games, you can see momentum shifts where that formula can break down or go in different directions. But at the end of the day, to me, that's winning. It's how do I build as a sales leader, to answer your question now for my long diatribe, how do we build a winning attitude that breeds momentum? I want my team moving in the right direction. I want to build that momentum. And to me, it starts with attitude, okay, which translates into that success. So you can even throw attitude in that early part of that formula. So that's kind of how I view it.
I absolutely love that, Aaron. I think you made some phenomenal analogies. I'm a big fan of sports analogies, and that was one of the ways that we clicked right off the bat. First off, as a sales coach or a leader, realize your role. Why do you exist? You don't exist to go out and close the deals for your team. You exist to empower your team, to put them in place to win, to set up that conducive environment for the belief. You gain momentum when there is that solid foundation of trust and transparency that you built with your team. But in realizing your role, you exist to promote your team, to be an advocate for your team, to be an evangelist of your brand, And absolutely, yes, you want to spend time in the field or in the virtual field with your team. I think that's critical.
Yeah.
Not only picking up, sometimes I'm just a fly on the wall in team meetings. I'm just listening to hear how they conduct. And don't get me wrong, I'd love to jump in sometimes and take over, but I don't, because you've got to let them play the game. And that goes back to your initial analogy. Be very intentional about finding winners, finding a team that's going to complement each other as well. I would pick that killer instinct or that hunger or that motivation or that, they're clear in their why any day over somebody with, on paper, a wealth of experience. Because the key is you need people that are going to stop at nothing, that are going to find the way to win, that have that belief element. But again, the game has to be played. You put the players on the field, you call the plays, but they have to go out and execute. And I mean, it's kind of like parenting. I definitely can't force my teenager to do much of anything, but I can try to model the behavior. I can care. I can share experiences, and I can be there and sit with her in tough situations. I don't always do it right, but we never do as leaders. We live, we learn. But it's about people and process for me. You nailed it, Aaron. It's focusing on people and then having the process in place, but you've got to commit to the process as well. You don't want to revert back to, a comfortable way of mediocrity or a comfortable way of failing. That's why when you're winning the game or you're ahead in the score, you don't start to second guess yourself. Just like if you are losing in the game or not where you anticipated being, you can't scramble. You can't start doing things that are outside of the process that you've committed to, because that's where you will fail and falter. Fundamentals, control those controllables. And I think those elements are so key. Now, one of the things too, Aaron, that I know you're very focused on is how do you add value to your team? I think this is a question that I wake up every day and I ask myself this: how can I add value for my team today? What are your thoughts on this? And what are some great ways that sales leaders can add value for their team?
Yeah, so I think first of all, a lot of sales leaders are really guilty of being more managers than leaders, right? But they're chasing their reps around, and it's like, all right, how much are you going to do this month? And why didn't you get this deal? And it just becomes counting numbers, and they're not adding a lot of value. And I think that's sales leaders lose credibility with their team when they're not in the trenches. They're not, really digging in and working with them on their pipelines and deal strategy. And I think that it's a common misstep. And as a young leader, I remember years and years ago, I started leading sales teams 24 years ago, right out of college, actually, when I was in college in inside sales. And you and I talked about our inside sales backgrounds. And I found that to be true early on, where it got to a point where I was so focused on the numbers and the quota and everything else that I lost sight of people. I lost sight of actually getting in and understanding the deal flow and the pipelines. And so I think adding value starts with, number one, getting to know your rep on your team, building a relationship, okay, that's not superficial. So, where you actually get to know one another and there's a trust and a credibility that's built. But number two, I think really digging in and doing deal strategy, walking through each call. So I always tell my team sometimes, like, my responsibility is to help things get unstuck. I've emailed clients, I've emailed prospects, I'll call them, like anything I can do to shake it loose, like it's a little stuck. So what can I do to help you bring it in? Let's go back and forth. Let's role play. Let's look at different scenarios and how we can get this one across the finish line. And where that really builds credibility is being a field rep at one point in the software industry. I know I've been where they are and I've seen how that translates. So adding value is helping them achieve their goals. And here's the important thing: a sales leader should always make a rep the best version of themselves. Okay, that's it, because that's their very best. All right, so that's my job. If your very best is 120% of quota, and that is your best, and you're tapped out, like, my responsibility is to get that out of you and to help inspire and motivate and lead you there, and that's adding value. So same with the 150 percenters and the 200 percenters. If I do that, then I've got a winning team, right? So I think that's part of adding value, is really getting in the trenches with your folks, as you mentioned, right? Virtually, we're sitting on calls, we're in the trenches. Another thing too to add value is removing non-selling time, removing barriers for your reps. So, like for instance, I deal with customer service issues. We have complaints, we have billing issues, we have invoice problems, we have this or that. So I spend sometimes the majority of my day blocking and tackling, taking that, like, hey, let me handle this. You go focus on selling and let me take this off your plate. Or let me have a difficult conversation with a client and negotiate a contract dispute. Like, I'll take care of that. Let me lead that charge for you. Like, that's what they love and need. So just things like that, I think, translate very well.
I couldn't agree more, Aaron. I think it's so key that we think about, especially when you're trying to add value for your team, you have to make it personal. And so you started off by getting to know them, which is critical. You're not going to understand how to best reach any of them unless you understand what they care about, what motivates them, what accolades matter to them, where do they want to go in the organization and in their career. Because if you empower them to win and you're their advocate and their ally and their evangelist, they're going to do their best work for you. And I think about my career. I've gravitated toward great leaders. I've had great leaders. I've had some where there wasn't a strong relationship. And then there's others that no matter what, I've always picked up little things from each. But I gravitate toward great leaders because those are the people that inspire me to do my best work. So I think about how can I be that beacon for them. You highlighted being in the trenches, and that is absolutely critical. When I got promoted into my last role, I gifted myself Mike Weinberg's book, Sales Management Simplified. I'm a huge Mike Weinberg fan. And that's one of the key things he talks about is being in the field. And look, I get it. We're all in a different spot right now. Not all of us can fly to be with our teams or, even go out on sales calls the way we could 3 years ago, but we can still be in the trenches. And that's the amazing thing about spending time with them when they're talking to customers. I still do a lot of prospecting to complement what my team does, trying to talk to executives and, develop relationships that are going to benefit the team. And then, modeling that behavior. The other element too is that the deal strategy that you hit on, Aaron. I don't care what the situation is, multiple eyes on some of these situations. Don't get me wrong, you want to keep control of that because you don't want it to be way too open. But if you're looking at that with somebody on your team, two sets of eyes are definitely going to be better than one. I also like to encourage my team to spend time without me to gel. I think it's important that they understand each other and that they find ways to help each other. When I was a seller and even as a manager, I always look for who's doing it better, who's doing it best. I want to know the best practices that are out there. I want my team to share best practices with each other. I look for wins every week, things that I can evangelize on our team calls, team meetings, call people out, recognize them. We do a special program called DJ of the Week. So whoever had the best win from the prior week gets to pick the song that leads us off on our team call. Just doing fun things like that, but encouraging them to gel and do players only conversations so that they can talk. Even if it's to complain, that's fine. Sometimes you've got to get that out of your system, but I trust them and I want them to gel. But bringing in best practices, I think to leverage one of the sports analogies again, Aaron, it's my job to help them see the playing field and all of the resources. On any baseball diamond, there's little nooks and crannies. You don't always have to swing for the fences. Sometimes you just have to know when to hit that bloop single over the first baseman's head when the infield's in. And so I think the key element is helping them see the field, ensuring that they know every resource at their disposal, and then sharing best practices of how these things can work well.
Well, I want to add something to what you just said. So how many I's are in the word winning? 2. There you go. So you mentioned, let's have more than one I. Well, there you go. So that's what you use to your team. There is no I in team. I had a guy say that to me once when I interviewed him. He says, Aaron, there's no I in team, but there is an I in winning, because he was kind of a solo person, and I'm like, well, I get that. That was great. I didn't see that coming. But there is 2 I's in winning. Okay, so to combat what you just said, it does take 2. So that is the first thing. The second thing is when you hire people, you trust them. You just said trust. I want to capitalize on that because I think that's adding value. It's like going back to another sports analogy. I hire an offensive coordinator and I'm the head coach, but I'm still calling the plays. Guess what? That's not going to work very well. There are teams where that happens, where the offensive coordinator, it's kind of a, head coach, offensive coordinator, both calling the plays, the head coach really running the show. That's not trusting your people. When you hire position coaches, you trust them to do the job. You're delegating and you're trusting. So I had a rep this morning, right, on a deal where I was pushing him on a deal, and he's a fairly new rep. And at the end of the day, I said to him yesterday, I'm like, okay, I would like for you to do this. He's like, no, I'm going to do it this way. I said, okay, I trust you. I trust your judgment. And he pings me this morning on Teams and says, hey, the guy signed at 2 a.m. And like, thank you for trusting me. That's exactly what he told me. He said, thank you for trusting me. And it made me feel so great that, you know what, he may have gone about it a different way, but at the end of the day, I trusted him. Even as a newer rep on my team, he got it done. He did it his way, but I let him do it. And so, trust is a key component. And the final thing I would say, on this topic is I don't like my reps selling desperate. And that comes with bad pipeline management. So how you add value to teams is ensuring that you give them that path of how to build a 2, 3, 4x pipeline, a quota, so that they're not desperate. Because what happens is when you get reps that have poor pipelines, they do push. They do get a little bit more aggressive. And without good pipeline management, even the best reps in the world, if they fail on their pipeline management, all of a sudden find themselves pushing a little hard. Okay, and then that pushes the clients away. People buy when they feel like you don't need them. It's your ability to do a takeaway and a deal to say, no, and it's okay. If you don't want to do this, it's totally okay. Like, we're just doing what's best for you. If you don't want to do it, fine. We'll do it in 3 months. But at the end of the day, I write emails to prospects all the time. And I'm like, whether you give me a yes or no is just as fine, is just as good to me. The no is just as good as a yes because it's a decision. So, sir, whatever you decide, just let me know if you could by the end of the day. And I'm totally fine. Nothing personal. And that really elicits a positive response when you can be in that position to say that, because you don't need that deal. If it drops, you've got others. So I think those are some other areas that we have to add value to our teams.
That was gold. I mean, all of it. It's funny. Michael Jordan made that comment that there is an I in win. It was in the last.
Okay. So somebody took a.
And it's funny when you said that, it resonated because I'm reading Phil Jackson's 11 Rings right now.
Yes.
And I'm getting great ideas from it. And it's hilarious because Jordan was obviously phenomenal, and there's a lot of lone wolves out there in the sales realm that are really, really strong at certain things. I was a great lone wolf once upon a time, but guess what? I unlocked my true potential when I embraced the team game, and I started to build consensus with leadership as opposed to just going off and doing things my way. Jordan was the same way. That's when he started winning championships. He was a scoring champion, but he started winning championships with his team when he embraced the team game, the triangle offense, and started playing what Phil Jackson had put into place. Now, here's the thing that you nailed, Aaron. It's all about trust. And when you hire someone, and I want to dive more into that element too, when you hire somebody, you enter into a pact. It's a negotiation. It's a deal, right? The company agrees and the leadership agrees to give them all of the tools, the training, the resources that they're going to need to be successful. And on the flip side, as a seller, I'm saying I agree to be the person that I pledged to be on interview day. I'm going to come in and I'm going to do this process. I'm going to execute this 30, 60, 90, whatever it is. There's a deal in place. And I love the fact that you empowered somebody on your team to go out and do it their way. Because look, we come together, we huddle, but they're the player on the field, and they're the one that's at the pulse of the customer, and they get paid to read the room. They get paid to figure out what to do. And I love that you were there from a strategy perspective, but you let them execute, and it worked. And what a phenomenal experience, because there's nothing better sometimes than not only the thrill of that win, but also the learnings that you take from it. Yes or no is also better than a maybe so. Couldn't agree more. I've always abided by that, because maybe so's leave you twisting in the wind. And I've seen so many sellers waste so much time on scenarios where they just weren't told no, even though it was obviously a no. I think that's so crucial. Top of mind right now for a lot of folks, and I talk to sales leaders all the time, is finding and retaining talent. How are you approaching this right now?
Yeah, it's very near and dear to my heart. So, to me, the lifeblood of any winning championship sales team is having talent, right? Go out and finding the right people that are talented. And I'm very selective and picky on who I want on my team. And so I find that, generally speaking, I think a lot of companies have recruiters and recruiting teams. I think there's a lot of value in that. I work really well with our recruiting team where they bring candidates and we look. I find that also what works best for me to supplement that is doing my own sourcing and having my own bench. And to me, I'd use LinkedIn for that, which is the platform that you and I met on, and using the Sales Navigator function I do searches, and I'm targeting people in the software industry, and I have specific parameters that I'm looking for. I've developed, if you will, a template of the prototypical rep that I know that I have an 80% chance of being successful if I hire this particular individual, but I have to go out and find that person. And so it is me as a hiring manager. If you're happy at your job right now and you get an email from a hiring manager, you're more apt to respond than you are from a recruiter. So I'm very poignant in my email when I am recruiting an individual who I have interest in through sourcing on LinkedIn, okay, and saying, hey, reaching out saying, hey, I'm the hiring manager for this position. I have an executive level sales opportunity. I'd really like to talk to you about this, and just walking through some of the benefits of working for my company. Like, this is why I'm here. You may be very happy where you are, but if you're looking for a new challenge or maybe some additional compensation or better work-life balance or culture, like, you definitely would want to talk to me. Can we have a 30-minute phone conversation? Like, we should at least have a conversation. Like, if you're looking for any of those things, even if you're super happy, right? And so I find that I get responses out of that, maybe 1 out of 10, and I've been able to find 2 good individuals in my Northeast territory doing it that way. And boom, second month on quota, they're hitting plan. They're tearing it up, right? Because they responded to that email to start it with that. So I usually target people that are happy where they are. I don't generally the people that are on performance plans or they've got their resume out there, or sometimes they're open to work. It's not that those can't be really good candidates. So I'm not saying that they aren't, because sometimes you do find some gold nuggets there. I'm saying that I like to go after somebody who's like, Aaron, no, I'm really good where I'm at. And I come back and say, okay, on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate your job satisfaction? Well, it's an 8. Well, we'll make it a 10. Or how's your culture? Or, what would you like to see your earnings do in the next year or two? Can we at least have a conversation and talk about that, even if you shoot it down? And that's my selling, right? So to me, that's where LinkedIn adds a lot of value, is me targeting a certain area in the country and saying, if I'm going after a particular company, I put the company name in Chicago, Illinois, and then I just start going profile by profile and looking for common threads of things that fit my template.
Aaron, you said something really profound, and I think it's amazing to me because I have conversations with people often about LinkedIn. And, obviously, full transparency, I work for Microsoft. We own LinkedIn. This isn't some kind of endorsement. I've used LinkedIn a lot over the years, and I've become well known for it within my own organization, just for leveraging it for prospecting. I too use it for going out and locating talent. In fact, I've even jumped in and helped colleagues of mine when I didn't have an opening, but helped colleagues of mine find talent based on almost exactly what you stated. Leveraging the tools like Sales Navigator, where you can go out and you can find by geography, you can find by experience, you can find by a number of years in role. There's so many different parameters that you can kind of put in place to try to find what an ideal candidate portfolio could conceivably look like. And then having that conversation, you nailed it. I couldn't have even said it better, as far as going out and trying to find folks that are happy in what they do, because guess what? You want somebody that is bringing their best every day.
That's right.
Right? So why would you necessarily try to seek somebody that was miserable where they were? Because guess what? They might find something to be miserable about when they work for you. So yeah. I love the fact that you highlighted that tool, because it's so valuable. And I don't think a lot of people globally are unlocking all of the potential that LinkedIn has. LinkedIn has that ability to go out and find people, executives. LinkedIn has the ability to create a brand. What do you want to be known for? What do you want to be a thought leader in? Well, guess what? You can blog, you can create content and put it out there. You can connect with people meaningfully. You and I met there. I meet people all the time from this platform, and I can't even tell you the amount of learning and growth that I've had as a result of people that I've met on the platform, or what I've been able to consume on the platform. And then, like you just said, some of these big problems that we as sales leaders sometimes gravitate toward. Okay, well, my problem when I talk to a sales rep is contactability. I can't get the right contact. Well, guess what? You can on LinkedIn. I've done it. I've been doing it for years. I am having trouble finding and retaining talent. Well, guess what? You can do it right here on LinkedIn. Don't get me wrong. You still have to invest in those relationships tangibly. Like, LinkedIn isn't going to take care of all that for you, but it will unlock doors that you may have never unlocked otherwise.
Yeah, and a closing remark on this topic, I think just like sales reps needing a pipeline, we need a pipeline of people. You need to develop that, because here's what happens. A lot of sales leaders are just looking to fill chairs to have a shot at quota. So all right, if I just, this guy's not an A player, or this lady isn't an A player, but I'm going to go ahead and bring her in, because if they can at least hit quota, or even a 75% of quota, it'll help me hit my overall objective. And I just need somebody in the role. And the reason that they're desperate, so now the manager's desperate, the sales leader's desperate, because they don't have a pipeline. They don't have a bench of 4 or 5 candidates that they've really worked at sourcing, have them on the bench, and when the role comes open, they're able to plug them into the role and fill that role immediately with a top quality candidate, male or female, doesn't matter, right? So I think that's the problem. It is that sales leaders get into the same problem that a rep does, bad pipelines when it comes to people. So LinkedIn is a tremendous tool to develop your bench. So I think that if we, anybody can take it away from that call, it's develop that bench in the territories that you manage, and have 2 or 3 or 4 people that have some interest at some point in your company and what you're doing.
Totally love that, Aaron. If you're a manager today, hear me. Have a bench, have a succession plan. You should be grooming the person that's going to take your place, or people that are able to come and take your place. Because the other element of this, Aaron, is I love the fact that if a colleague of mine, or let's say even a skip level, needed someone today to be a leader on their team, that I could say, look at these people on my team. Because guess what? You're growing the future leaders of the business. People are also going to want to work for you because they know that you groom the leaders.
Absolutely. Great.
We've got a couple minutes left here. Anything else that you want to hit on before we sign off?
No, I think that those are really some of the key things we talked about, and as far as adding value and certainly the recruiting aspect of it, which is very, very important. So I appreciate it, Carson. Thank you so much for your time. This is an awesome conversation.
Absolutely, Aaron. I always love finding other people that are super passionate about this this game that we get to play. I feel very fortunate to be part of the selling game, and to get to work with great professionals both in and out of my company. So thank you for imparting some words of wisdom here today, and hopefully the sales leaders out there that are watching can pick something up and can make it part of their process. So thanks so much.
Great. Thank you for having me.